Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of BizTalks. My name is Wayne Diggs and I'm the Assistant Professor for Business at the Rio Grande campus. And today we're going to be talking to you about navigating leadership and organizational culture. It's an important subject because there are lots of changes that are happening within the business world that influence the bottom line and how managers, how owners manage their leadership and organizational culture significantly impacts that. Have a really special guest for you today. Her name is Melissa Laibinis, and she has an extensive background in human resource management, organizational leadership, and culture. And without further ado, I would like for Melissa to talk to us about her background.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Well, I actually got my start here at EPCC. I worked here as a compensation analyst, but prior to moving to El Paso, I worked for the government, the Army and Air Force Exchange Service. I worked for 10 and a half years. I lived overseas, got military orders, and then I finally came to El Paso just over 20 years ago. So I've worked in education and government. Like I said, I worked at EPCC, at UTEP. I was overseeing HR for the Sheriff's Office, president of the HR chapter, and I taught at Webster University and credentialed at others.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Melissa, let's start with, there's a lot of changes that are happening, and like any other industry or any other thing, things evolve. But with regard to management and organizational culture, there are a lot of things that are happening that, again, definitely impact how businesses operate. Can you share any insights on some of the changes that are happening and how they impact organizations?
Sure. Well, some of the changes that we see right now is, due to the changes in administration, we see a lot of uncertainty. We see a lot of individuals that are stressed. I also have noticed that there's a huge uptick in individuals that are requesting time off from work because they have, not only are they stressed, but they also have children, and then they're sandwiched in between caring for their parents. We have an aging, people that are, just trying to manage everything. So what I've seen is that as leaders, we have to take a lot more of an empathetic approach to how we approach our employees, showing more care and concern and respect for their needs, while also managing the business, ensuring that we meet all of our mission and our goals. So it's just something that I've seen more that, I can look back to how my career, years ago, I used to take a lot more of an autocratic approach, and then, it became, we're going to be more democratic, and we started doing a lot more teamwork. And now I see that, with AI and all of the changes, we need to be, moving ahead. We need to be transformational. What are we doing to keep up? What are we doing to also take care of our employees? Because they're not like the baby boomers that'll just stay. They'll leave. So we have to do our part to be a servant leader, to get to know them well, find out what their needs are. And then we also have a lot of individuals that work remotely. So how to keep them engaged, how to keep everyone cohesive, how to make them feel included. And for the team to work properly, we have to be very innovative in our approach. How do we, of course, we do the video, we have our meetings, but making some time for the coffee talk that we would normally have, playing some games or a scavenger hunt, anything that gets people interested in each other and engaged.
Absolutely. One of the things that's obvious today, there are multiple generations of people working in any given environment. Do you have any insight, or what are your thoughts about how managers, leaders should operate, or what are some things that they could implement to make them successful in handling a multi-generational organization?
Well, because we have such a diverse workforce, and I think it's really important to get to know your staff, find out what is it that is important to them. Apart from you as an individual understanding, being clear about what the goals are, what the expectations are, it really is important to find out what makes them get motivated, what will make everybody successful.
Wonderful. Do you have a preference for a leadership style that would work better under stressful situations, or can you talk to individuals who find themselves in those uncomfortable situations and trying to manage or lead through situations that are, again, uncomfortable for them?
If it's something that's very, like you have a really short turnaround time or something that's very high stress, then I would say that a transactional type of leadership style, something more autocratic where you're letting them know. And it depends too on the employee. Is it, an employee that still needs that? I mean, if you're a firefighter and you're putting out a fire, there's no time, you're just telling them, you need to give them the orders. We're doing this. But if you've got a team that they know what they're doing, they've been, there for a long time, then it's really important to get their buy-in, listen as a leader, communicate, take in their feedback, and, implement that. So it really just depends on also the dynamics of the business, because if it's something where you're working at a factory versus, maybe corporate or government, it may be a different type of approach. I've just seen that for myself when I first started versus how I approach things now, a lot more of a servant type of leadership approach where we're looking at what can we do to keep our employees happy, what can we do to make sure that we're meeting their needs? Do they have all their resources? Do they have all their tools? Are we giving them opportunities to continue their education? What are we doing as an organization to move forward? And that's everybody. Everybody has to move forward.
Wow. Can you think of a time where you had to adjust your leadership style because it perhaps wasn't working? And what was the takeaway? What was the takeaway from that experience for you?
Well, I think that maybe the laissez-faire type of approach doesn't work so well when employees are new, or if you see that something didn't occur the way that you thought. I've just taken a lot more of an approach where I'm open and transparent, and I'm not afraid to say, this didn't work. I made a mistake, or these were some of the successes that we had, but this is where we could have done better. And what I've taken from my previous experience is that I used to want to show that we were successful, and now I say we can all improve, and I am more vulnerable and open. And I used to think that that was a weakness, but it's really a strength, because it is difficult, and you don't have to show your employees I'm perfect all the time. We all make mistakes, but if they feel that they can come to you and that you're not going to just reprimand them, that you're going to use it as a learning, and in fact find a way to ensure, like, how can we ensure that this doesn't happen again, but to do it in a respectful way. I can look back to a leader that even when I didn't do something the way that I want it to do, had a way of making me feel like this is a learning experience, still motivating me, and not feeling like, oh, I'm such a failure. And that's something that I really want to ensure that I do with all of my staff, because they respect you more, and they'll work harder for you, and they're more willing to take a risk. And when they bring you their ideas, we can all be more successful.
Positive organizational culture is a key component to success. What do you see as threats to maintaining a positive organizational culture today?
Well, with organizational culture, threats that I would see, or things that would go against a positive environment, is when there is a lack of trust, a lack of transparency, when we fail to communicate or clearly establish goals and expectations. If you start seeing that the employees are calling in sick, or that there's, discontent, maybe they're, gossiping, or just, lower performance type of things, then those are things that, you need to address and look at what are the things that we're missing, talk to them, find out what's going on. It's really important to get to know your employees and show them that you care about them. Something that I've always, it's just, something that we talk about in HR is people don't leave a job because of pay or because of, lack of benefits or anything like that. They leave bad management. So if you're not respecting your employees, if you're not making them feel valued, then they'll leave. And that's very expensive, because if we have to bring in someone else and onboard and train, and we lose that expertise, then the business loses. And if you are able to keep your employees engaged, then you have the experts, and it's also good because you can do more. It's also the succession planning. And so it's really important that that you do focus on keeping that culture, and that you look at innovative ways to keep people interested and motivated.
Absolutely. And then in those circumstances where it just got away from us, is there any advice that you would offer to executives or business owners on how to turn it around? How can they correct culture when it has slipped away?
Well, it has to be addressed. One of the failures that I've seen is when someone is afraid to address something and they think that it'll go away. If there are issues, then it's something that you need to tackle. You need to get to the root cause. What is the issue that's, do they have everything that they need? Do they have all the tools? Are they properly trained? Is it coaching, or is it something else? So it's really important to really dig into what the issue could be, and then to follow up and ensure, get an action plan, put something together, and ensure that the follow through is there.
Absolutely. Today, emotional intelligence is a big subject, very important. In fact, what insight could you share about managers exhibiting a proper amount of emotional intelligence when they're dealing with their personnel in the workplace?
Well, it's very important to be empathetic. That's something that in the past we weren't so focused on, but emotional intelligence is important because it's how you are interacting, but also the response that you're receiving. Are we aware of, does the employee look upset? Do they look discontent? Are they receiving, the way that you're communicating? So it's important when I'm looking at my communication, I'm looking at, are they receiving the message that I'm trying to send? And if that's not working, then I know that my emotional intelligence, my EQ is off, and I need to find out what is the issue, and how can I communicate better? How can I show that I care about them? Because we need to get to what the root cause is and solve this issue and ensure that we're all successful and that the business is prospering.
I like that you just shared about how you handle it, but can you also share how you maintain your own awareness of your level of emotional intelligence?
Well, for maintaining my own awareness is I sometimes, I need to ask for feedback. I will, I do some reading. I focus on keeping myself abreast of, leadership type of, whether it's conferences or books or anything, but also with my peers. And in the one-on-ones, I've asked my staff to let me know, like, how am I doing? How am I doing as your leader? Because we always give them feedback about how they're doing, but it's important for us to also receive that feedback and to actually take it, listen to what it is that they're saying. They have good, valuable information about whether it's processes or even our relationship. So I like to elicit that feedback and also do something with it, because that's a little bit hard. You can receive it, but then you have to actually do something.
So looking at managing your own emotional intelligence, what advice would you give to managers who struggle with dealing with conflict in the workplace? What could they do to better handle that?
Well, when there is conflict in the workplace, as a manager or a leader or supervisor, it is important to actually tackle that. And that's where I see that some individuals have difficulty, but it's something that has to be done. Right.
And we're talking about conflict. What are some techniques that you would advise managers to use, or how could they better understand and to deal with conflict? And I say that because I implement that because some people just don't like confrontation at all, whether it's confrontation that they're involved with or confrontation that people in their charge are involved with. But we know that if that gets out of control, it doesn't bode well for the overall health of the organization. So some people need input. They need insight on how they can handle, or how they should handle, or techniques that they can implement to manage conflict within a company. And so that's what I was asking. Are there any pointers, or is there any insight that you could share in that regard?
Sure. Well, with employee conflict, it's a little bit of an employee relations issue as well. So a lot of, getting facts, digging, finding out what is it that's occurring. What is it, an issue? Is it something that's an issue that we need to address that's against a policy, or is it something that's illegal? Is it something that it's an attitude, or they're not getting along? So as far as addressing conflict in the workplace, I would address it as an employee relations issue and find out what it is that's going on. Do some digging, talk to the employees. Sometimes it might mean talking to others, and then formulating a solution, whether that's training or a reprimand or a performance improvement plan. But it's not always something negative. Sometimes you see an issue and it's just that maybe they don't have proper communication. It might be interpersonal relations that they need to work on, or they may not be aware that they're doing that, in which case opening those lines of communication. So it sort of just depends on the issue.
Got it. Another thing that disrupts people's performance sometimes is anxiety that's created by changes within an industry. Sometimes organizations have to downsize, so there's layoffs and things like that. And for those people that are left behind, again, sometimes that could cause them to be a little uneasy. Can you share some insight on how managers dealing with that type of circumstance can manage through it?
Right. Well, when there's layoffs or a reduction in force, talking to the employees, communicating what it is that's happening. If you have information, don't hoard that to yourself. Talk to them, let them know what's going on so that they don't feel in the dark, because then they start to wonder, am I next? Or why did this happen? Was it a funding issue? Was it, a government directive? What was the issue? So it really is important to talk to the employees, whether it be meeting with them, also, doing things that are going to ensure that you're eliciting feedback. So it might be satisfaction surveys, or but being transparent and with what's going on is important, especially when there's fear and anxiety about something going on like there is right now. A lot of individuals that are being let go in the federal government, there's a lot of turmoil and people feeling uneasy and looking for other jobs. But if we as leaders talk to them and explain, this is what's coming through the pipeline, this is what we know, and you share that with them, then they feel a little bit more at ease and more comfortable that they're secure, or if they do need to start planning for something, that's important too.
Absolutely. Another big thing too that affects companies is change. Most of us don't like it, but it is a necessary evil sometimes. Any advice on how managers can manage through organizational change? Keeping the team calm and helping them to work through that.
Right. Well, there is a lot of change, and a lot of the times some employees are going to be resistant. Even managers can be resistant to it. But as a leader, it's our role to be that transformational individual to bring us forward. So it starts with us, and it may take some time, and there's always a J curve when there's changes, but it really is important to just, again, communicate with your staff and be empathetic about it. I can't stress that enough. It's something that I really can't stress enough in this time, that it's we have to really be careful about how we talk to our staff and show that we care, because there is a lot going on, and it affects their lives.
Absolutely. Another thing too, sometimes in larger organizations, departments can kind of separate and operate in silos. So any input or feedback on how executive level managers can help departments move away from that,
so that they don't operate separately?
Exactly.
Well, that's a good question. When you do see that we have to work together, then sometimes there's it might take the two leaders figuring out a plan. So something that we did in one of my former positions is HR would often team up and do team building and coordinate with budget or payroll or other departments that were important, because we had to work together. And when you know a little bit more about what they're doing and they have an idea of what you're doing, a lot of the times you're not going to be so divided if you can come together. It's kind of like team building, even though it's separate departments, but it really does take coming together and looking at how we all have the same mission and we all are trying to meet the same goal, and we can help each other. We don't have to be so siloed. We can share information, we can work together. And there may be times when it's, when it is actually okay for us to work separate, but if they're taking that upon themselves to silo and separate, then that's not a good thing. That shows that there's some discourse and that there's a lack of communication. There's something that's breaking down there that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. And we understand how important team operation or team development is to accomplishing tasks within an organization. Any insight on how managers can manage through the stages of group or team development?
How they can manage through group or team development as far as stages? Well, I mean, it's kind of like when you're forming, kind of, building
Exactly.
those teams together. So you're going through all those steps, until you're performing. But ultimately, it's about being clear with the expectations, making sure that they're trained and that we're meeting their needs and that they have everything that they need as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would just say too, it's important that whoever is ultimately responsible for overseeing, if it's a specific project or initiative, that they actually guide that team or group through that process.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That they set really clear, guidelines as to what the expectations are, and check in, make sure that they have everything that they need, that everything that the project is going successfully. Like you said, checking in is really important.
Yeah. Another thing too, especially as young leaders, managers within an organization, we're in a state of growth. We're always in a constant state of growth. But any insight for maybe a younger manager, leader who is fearful, on how to work through that fear to get to where they want to be, in terms of growth? How can they manage through fear while they're growing and learning how to be a manager, leader in a company?
I mean, some things are going to you're going to be afraid at times, and you're learning through something, but I would recommend for a young leader to early in their career ask for a mentor. That's something that is really invaluable, and you could learn so many things from someone who's already been in your shoes. And once you are, better versed and you're the expert in your field, you're not just going to be the mentee, but you yourself can be a mentor. So for someone that's young and scared, or trying to figure their way, I'm not going to say fake it till you make it. I'm going to say try to ensure that you do your homework, talk to your your superiors, but work with everybody. Do your best to always improve yourself, to keep yourself ahead, and that you're so that you're not so afraid, because a lot of that fear comes from not knowing.
Gotcha. Melissa, it's been a real treat to have you here today. Greatly appreciate the insight that you've given. And for those of you who are watching, again, my name is Wayne Diggs. I've been your host. Our guest today is Melissa Laibinis. Hope you learned something. And I'd like to give a special thanks to our El Paso Community College media team who puts on this event for us. I'd also like to thank all of the other faculty members out there for El Paso Community College who do a splendid job in the classrooms talking about these very same things that we are talking about here on this set. And so my office number, for those of you who might be interested, is 915-831-4248. Email address is wdiggs@epcc.edu. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. Be more than happy to answer them. And I look forward to seeing you, or hopefully seeing you at some time in the future. But check out our episodes. Take care.